There is a certain kind of person who never learned how to just exist. They were never unseen, they were never ignored, they were measured against a sibling who always seemed to get it right, against a cousin who never needed to be told twice, against a version of themselves that was constantly described but never quite became real. And now, as adults, they carry something invisible but heavy, a scoreboard that never stops running, a quiet voice that asks, not who am I, but am I enough yet? What you are about to hear is not just psychology. It is a mirror, researchers call it, contingent self-worth, a sense of value built entirely on external measurement. By the end of this video, you will understand why comparison shaped how you love, how you rest, and whether you believe you deserve to be chosen. But more importantly, you will learn that what was wired can be unwired, and that is where everything changes. Most people assume comparison is just motivation with a sharp edge. Parents say things like, "Why can't you be more like your brother?" or "Look how well she's doing," thinking it will push their child forward. But the child does not hear motivation. The child hears replacement. They hear that love is not stable, that affection is a ranking system, and slowly something inside them begins to bend without ever breaking visibly. Developmental psychology tells us that identity is not built in isolation. It is built in reflection. A child learns who they are by how they are responded to. When those responses are filtered through constant comparison, the child does not develop a stable sense of self. They develop a sense of position. First place, second place, somewhere in between. They stop seeing themselves as a person and start seeing themselves as a score. And here is where the wound becomes invisible, because that child may still function. They may still achieve. They may still smile at family dinners. They may even outperform everyone around them. But internally, they are never standing still. They are always racing against someone who is not even in the room anymore. When a child is repeatedly compared, their nervous system learns a very specific set of rules. Safety comes from outperforming. Approval is conditional. Affection must be earned. And rest is dangerous because rest means someone else is gaining ground. These are not conscious beliefs that the child chooses. They become background programs, running silently beneath every decision, every relationship, every quiet moment alone. The child does not think these rules. The child becomes them. Research in attachment theory shows that children internalize parental evaluations as part of their inner voice. So when comparison becomes the dominant message, the child does not just hear it from their parents. They absorb it. That voice moves inside, and even decades later when no one is watching, the comparison continues. They sit in a room alone and still feel evaluated. They achieve something meaningful and immediately ask, was that better than what they did? The neurological consequence is significant. When children feel accepted for who they are, their nervous system develops resilience and a capacity for calm. But when they feel accepted only when they outperform, their nervous system develops vigilance. It becomes wired for threat detection even in safe environments. This is why adults who were compared as children often overthink conversations, replay interactions obsessively, and search for signs they did something wrong. They learned early that small differences could change how they were treated. So nothing feels small anymore. Everything feels loaded with consequence. Now, here is something rarely discussed. Comparison does not only damage the child who is told they are not enough, it also damages the child who is constantly held up as the standard, the one who is praised, the one who wins the comparison. Because that child learns something equally distorted. They learn that their worth is not inherent. It is earned through being better than someone else. This creates a different kind of prison. They cannot have a bad day without feeling like they are losing their identity, cannot struggle without shame, and cannot ask for help because asking would mean admitting they are not superior. And their relationship with the sibling who was compared to them often becomes complicated by guilt they cannot name. They were loved, yes, but they were loved as a weapon, and that is not the same as being loved for who they are. So whether you were the one falling short or the one being used as the measuring stick, the outcome is strangely similar. Neither child got to just be. Both learned that love was transactional. Both internalized the belief that their value depended on where they stood relative to someone else. Let me describe what this looks like when it follows you into adulthood, because it does follow you, into friendships, into romantic relationships, into your career, and even into how you rest. The child who was compared does not leave that experience at the doorstep of childhood. They carry it into every room they enter for the rest of their life, often without realizing it. In friendships, the child who is always compared often becomes the reliable one, the one who listens deeply, shows up consistently, gives more than they ask for. They remember birthdays, they check in during hard times, they make themselves indispensable, but beneath that generosity is a familiar fear. If I stop adding value, will I still matter? They become the strong friend, the low-maintenance friend, the one who never needs much. And people admire this, but admiration is not the same as being known. And deep down, they wonder if anyone would stay if they stopped performing. They wonder if the friendship is real or if it is just another transaction. In romantic relationships, comparison creates a constant background tension. They struggle to believe they are chosen for who they are rather than what they provide. Love feels conditional even when it is not. They measure themselves against past partners, imagined rivals, idealized standards that do not exist. They read between lines that were never written. They hear criticism in neutral statements. They brace for rejection even in moments of closeness. And the nervous system stays alert, waiting for the moment connection might be taken away, because it learned long ago that it could be. Even in a healthy relationship, their body does not fully relax. It is always scanning for signs that they are about to be replaced. At work, the pattern intensifies. They may overwork not out of passion but out of fear. Fear of being average, fear of being outpaced, fear of becoming invisible. Achievements bring momentary relief, not satisfaction. Because relief is just the absence of threat. It is not the same as fulfillment. They struggle to celebrate progress because the mind immediately asks, what is next? And rest feels dangerous because comparison never rests. Someone is always moving. If they stop, they imagine falling behind. This leads to a specific kind of exhaustion that is not physical. It is existential, the feeling of constantly running without knowing where the finish line is, or whether there even is one. If any of this resonates with you, type the number 1 in the comments. And let me know where you are watching from. I am curious how far this experience reaches, whether you are in the US, the Philippines, Canada, Australia, or somewhere else entirely. One of the most misunderstood effects of constant comparison is perfectionism. People assume it comes from high standards or ambition, but in most cases, it comes from fear. The fear of being measured and found lacking. The child who was always compared learned that mistakes are not neutral. They are evidence that someone else is winning, evidence that love might shift away from them, so they try to eliminate mistakes entirely. Not because they love excellence, but because they fear replacement. And yet, no matter how much they improve, the finish line keeps moving. There is always someone smarter, faster, calmer, more accomplished. The race has no end. And then there is an interesting relationship with failure. Some become deeply afraid of it. Others almost expect it. They may sabotage opportunities right before success, not consciously, but emotionally. Because success creates exposure, and exposure feels dangerous to someone who was constantly evaluated. Failing early feels safer than being judged later, so they pull back at the moment things begin to go well, and then they blame themselves for it. But this is not self-destruction, it is self-protection that never got updated. It is a strategy that made sense when they were small and vulnerable. It just does not serve them anymore. Another quiet consequence of growing up compared is the loss of internal motivation. When a child is constantly focused on outperforming others, they lose touch with what they actually want. They become skilled at doing what is rewarded, but they struggle to identify what they enjoy. So as adults, they may feel directionless even while achieving. They may succeed on a path they never chose. They may look accomplished to everyone around them and still feel hollow inside, because fulfillment requires alignment, and alignment requires self-connection. Comparison disrupts that connection at the root. They may not know their favorite color, without wondering what answer sounds more impressive. They may not know what career they want without calculating what others would respect. They learn to optimize for external validation so thoroughly that the internal compass stopped functioning. And when someone finally asked them, "What do you actually want?" the silence that follows is not confusion. It is grief. Grief for all the years spent answering a different question. Grief for the version of themselves they never got to meet. But here is what gets lost in all of this. The child who was always compared did not just develop wounds. They developed extraordinary abilities. They became masters at reading rooms, sensing emotions, understanding unspoken dynamics before anyone else noticed. Their depth of empathy cuts deeper than most people will ever understand. Their ability to anticipate needs, to notice what others miss, to feel the weight of a moment before it lands, these are not weaknesses. They are survival intelligence that emerged under pressure. The problem is not the abilities themselves. The problem is that they are still operating in survival mode, long after the threat has passed. The sensitivity that once protected them now exhausts them. The awareness that once kept them safe now keeps them anxious. These gifts were forged in fire, and they remain gifts. They just need a new context, one where they serve connection instead of self-protection. But here is what most people do not tell you. The brain that learned comparison can also unlearn it. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity. The same mechanism that allowed your nervous system to wire around threat and evaluation is the same mechanism that allows it to rewire around safety and self-trust. The patterns are deep, yes, but they are not permanent. Healing begins not with confidence, but with curiosity. Curiosity about your own internal experience. What do I actually like? What feels meaningful to me without applause? What values feel steady even when no one is watching? These questions may feel uncomfortable at first. For someone raised on comparison, silence feels unfamiliar. There is no scoreboard, no immediate feedback, just presence. But presence is where identity lives, and identity is what comparison stole. Another crucial step is learning to notice the measuring reflex without obeying it. That moment when you walk into a room and immediately scan. Who is doing better? Who has more status? Who seems more confident? This reflex is not a character flaw. It is a learned pattern, and patterns can be observed without being followed. You can notice the comparison and say, "This is an old habit," and gently return to yourself. Comparison narrows attention, self-awareness expands it. The body also plays a role, because comparison does not just live in thought, it lives in tension. The shoulders that stay raised, the jaw that stays tight, the breath that stays shallow. These are signs of a nervous system still scanning for threat. Learning to relax is not laziness, it is relearning safety. This is why many people who are compared feel uncomfortable when things are calm. Calm feels unfamiliar, chaos feels normal, but calm is where repair happens. Healing also involves redefining success, not as being better than others, but as alignment with your own values. Success becomes doing work that feels meaningful, even if no one notices. Success becomes relationships where you are seen, not just useful. Success becomes rest without guilt, presence without performance, and enough without comparison. This redefinition goes against everything the conditioning taught, but it is the only path forward. There is also the matter of self-compassion, which may feel foreign to someone who was raised on comparison. Many people who grew up this way speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to someone they love. They are their own harshest critic, but this voice was inherited, not chosen. Learning to soften it is not indulgence, it is correction. You can challenge that voice not with toxic positivity, but with truth. You can say, "I am allowed to exist without being exceptional." That sentence may feel radical, but it is accurate. Human worth is not earned through performance. It is inherent. Part of healing is also learning to set boundaries without over-explaining. The child who was compared often became an over-justifier, constantly defending their choices, their preferences, their right to exist as they are. But you do not owe anyone a dissertation on your worth. No is a complete sentence, and choosing yourself is not selfish. It is overdue. For those who fear passing this pattern to their own children, hear this. The fact that you are aware of the wound means you are already breaking the cycle. You are not your parents. You are not destined to repeat what was done to you. Awareness is the first fracture in the chain, and every time you catch yourself comparing and choose a different response, you widen that fracture. You create space for something new. There is also grief. Grief for the child who had to earn what should have been freely given. Grief for the version of you that never got to explore without pressure. Grief for the years spent chasing a feeling of enoughness that never arrived. This grief may come in waves. It may feel heavy, but it is not weakness. It is integration. You are not falling apart. You are finally putting the pieces in their true place. Before I continue to the closing, I want to ask you something. If you could go back and say one thing to your younger self, the one who was always being measured, what would you tell them? Write it in the comments. Sometimes putting it into words is the first step toward believing it yourself. The child who was always compared grew up learning how to survive evaluation. The adult they become can learn how to live without it. Not perfectly, not all at once, but gradually, gently, with awareness and with patience for the parts of themselves that are still learning to trust. And one day, without noticing exactly when it happened, the question inside you will change. It will no longer be, am I enough compared to them? It will become, am I being true to myself today? And that question, unlike comparison, has no rival, only direction, only presence, only you. You were not behind, you were never lacking. You were simply responding to an environment that taught you to measure yourself instead of understand yourself. The strategies you developed were intelligent. They helped you survive a system that was never fair to begin with. But you do not need those strategies anymore. You are safe now, and you are allowed to put them down. The moment you stop comparing yourself, something strange happens. You begin to feel your own weight again, not heavy, real. You begin to hear your own preferences without filtering them through what sounds impressive. You begin to rest without the guilt whispering that you should be doing more. You begin to exist without earning it. And that is where your story finally begins to belong to you. Not to the sibling you were measured against, not to the imaginary version your parents described, not to the scoreboard that never stopped running, just to you, whole, present, enough. You always were.